Assalamu alaikum. Thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Lily. I'm the Director of Global Outreach for NYU Abu Dhabi, and we welcome you here at 19 Washington Square North, which is our Abu Dhabi headquarters here in beautiful New York. We're so excited to have you and to join us for this really exciting panel discussing the intersection of sports and diplomacy in the UAE. And I can't help but feel some incredible excitement and energy. It's a really momentous time in the UAE and in New York. And so before I continue, I wanted to talk about something that is actually addressing a matter of utmost importance and diplomacy when it comes to being New Yorkers, and that would be rooting for the Knicks tonight. I know we're all very hopeful. I am a lifer, and this is our year. And I know we say that every year, but this year I'm feeling it especially. And so what unites us here today is the recognition of sports and how sports serves as an equalizer, transcending borders and cultures and languages to really foster unity, understanding, and empowerment. Our panelists this afternoon are comprised of lawyers, philanthropists, activists, athletes, our esteemed faculty members, dignitaries, all bound by their love for sports, and also a shared commitment for leveraging its power for the betterment of society. The belief in sports and drive the accessibility, inclusivity, and progress in our communities here in the United States, our beloved UAE, and beyond. As we delve into today's discussion, let us be reminded of how profound impact of sports can be to not only on the field, but also in shaping societies, bridging cultures, and fostering diplomacy. Together, let us explore how we can harness power to build together a brighter, more connected future. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to our moderator, Chris Dawes, Professor of Politics at the College of Arts and Science, and welcome you all again.
So I guess we'll start with the introductions of the panelists. They'll introduce themselves. I guess start with you, Lee, but I'm Chris Dawes. I'm an associate professor at the Wilf Family Department of Politics here at NYU. I research sports and teach a class on it in NYU Abu Dhabi every J term, so right in my wheelhouse.
Lee Eagle. I'm a professor in the NYU SPS Tisch Institute for Global Sport. And I think I'll just take a page from you, and also teach in NYU Abu Dhabi when they let me go over there on sports and cities and innovation and impact.
Thank you, Chris. Eric DiMaselli, Vice President of Social Responsibility and Player Programs at the National Basketball Association's League office right here in New York City. Been at the league just about 18 years, oversee our social responsibility efforts, including our work through NBA Cares and other platforms, as well as some of our social justice efforts, our HBCU efforts, and a lot of our global efforts, which includes our work in partnership with NYU in Abu Dhabi. We host games and other programming, youth programming, girls program, etc.
Jennifer O'Sullivan, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for New York City Football Club, the MLS professional team that plays here in New York. I've been with the club for the last 4 years. I oversee mainly operational and administrative side of the business, and as well as our recently approved new stadium plans for stadium outside of, in Willets Point, Queens.
Emeka Okafor, former athlete, proud UConn alum, 10-year NBA pro, stops in Charlotte, Washington, New Orleans, little G League stint in Delaware, Korean stint in the KBL, and currently dad, roles, ballet drop off, and soccer pickup.
Donnell Marashi. I just celebrated 13 years at the Embassy of the United Arab Emirates in Washington, D.C. I head the Department of Cultural Diplomacy and was brought on to set the department up in 2011 by Ambassador Lateba.
Great. So I wanted to start out with you, Donna, given the theme of the panel, and just the UAE has been invested a lot in sports over the last decade or longer, and it's become a global leader in sports with annual Formula One events, events for professional tennis, golf, MMA, to name a few, and also hosting international events like the Special Olympics and the Asian Cup of Nations in football. And then the UAE has made investments in football and cycling. And so I guess I would like to hear from you what the intuition is or what the reasons are for this investment in sports from the UAE and kind of members of the royal family.
You know, I think sports has always been a great unifier, no matter what language you speak. If you're passionate about that sport, it kind of brings everyone together. And I think, you know, the UAE has kind of, in terms of the tourism industry, we've grown by leaps and bounds every year. And so partnering with organizations such as Formula One or the NBA or, you know, even video gaming, e-gaming, it kind of helps to kind of shine a spotlight on us. And, you know, over the years, we've continued to kind of grow our infrastructure to be able to attract these kind of world-class organizations to be able to host these games there and to be able to attract tourists from all around the region to be able to come and watch, but then also be able to experience the culture and hospitality of the UAE as well.
In terms of like things like regional competition or international diplomacy, are there goals like that in terms of sports for the UAE? Raise its stature among other nations of the world? Or?
Look, I think the UAE's always tried to be extremely hospitable, extremely welcoming, and inclusive. So hosting, for example, the Special Olympics in 2019, it was a concerted effort to make sure that it was the most inclusive World Games that they had in its history. If countries did not have a team, you know, the UAE made sure that we were able to fund them to be able to make sure that they had a presence there. So in whatever sport it is, we try to make sure that we are inclusive. We want to make sure that players or team members that come to the UAE really get to experience the very best of the UAE to be able to come back year after year after year. And I think that's a testament to the NBA coming back again for the next All-Stars game. So we're very excited about that.
And I guess bringing Lee in terms of the research and policy implications of investing in sports and hosting events. And we've seen this not just from the UAE, but Saudi Arabia and Qatar hosting the World Cup, recent World Cup. What are the kind of overarching motivations beyond just the UAE for nations to do things like this?
Do you have another question that I could do? It's early. You asking that question? So the truth is, there are kind of two lenses, and there's. I'm going to put a word out here that I think I should do it, one of those trigger warnings, but sports washing comes into this conversation. I'm going to put it into the conversation so that it gets cleared out right now, because that's an idea that sport can be used to shape public perception anywhere in the world, and from any person or organization or institution that wants to shape a particular public perception based on what people generally might think about it or stereotypes about it. A few things are, one, it comes from the human rights area, so it's political to start with. The second thing about it is that it tends not to work, because as soon as somebody says, oh, look, there's sports washing, well, now everybody's paying attention. So that piece isn't there. But I think the most interesting part about it is that it mostly comes from kind of a Western view, that this is a thing and that it's political. Anybody who's been, I'll speak to the UAE part of it in particular, anybody who's been to the UAE, I don't even think you have to set foot on the ground. You just have to, as you're flying in, you will quickly see this is an innovative and entrepreneurial society. The reason that their investment in sports is because of that, because of the relationship between sports and society, sports and community, sports and humanity. It is not for, you could pay a public relations firm if you want to get good PR. you do not invest in sports and on this level for public relations. You do it because you're trying to grow something greater than is already there. That is the reason why those investments are happening.
Thanks. Eric, so one of the relationships that the UAE has formed, as you alluded to before, is with the NBA. And so obviously the NBA is interested in internationally growing the sport, growing the brand. Why did the NBA choose the UAE when it could have chosen, say, other countries?
Yeah, great question. And the NBA, is a very global sport, very similar to football or soccer. Basketball is a unifier. It allows kids and people of all ages to play the game, whether they're playing alone in their driveway or in the street or playing the team game. So it's really a sport that allows for growth. And we've seen such growth around the world. The work we've done on other continents, including our work in China, our work in Africa that Emeka can really talk to as well. We've done programming in India, all around the world. And we had the opportunity to come to the UAE, and specifically Abu Dhabi. It wasn't just about bringing the game. And I know a lot of attention came around the games itself, and we're entering our third year this October. It's about starting at the grassroots level and working with schools and organizations that are developing the next generation of kids through education, health and wellness, and sport, and using the game of basketball as a hook to encourage kids to take on some of those values of life and values of the game, and teaching the importance of inclusion. So in Abu Dhabi, working with our office in London, they program in partnership with NYU and other entities. We have an NBA basketball school, we have a junior NBA program, and we have a Her Time to Play program that had been running even prior to the games coming to Abu Dhabi. So when we saw it as an opportunity to work in a part of the world that is so eager for the sport of basketball and sport in general, and it allowed us to bring some of those prominent athletes in the world to a country that really has such an input on the next generation.
So is there specific things about the UAE that make it not necessarily more attractive than other places, but like say different than your efforts in China or Africa or?
Well, personally, like Talise said, it is a beautiful place to be in the world. Had the opportunity to go there for our first game. I just think to the point and the investment that the UAE is making in sport and being one of the most prominent leagues, as you alluded to, so that mutual opportunity to give back and the mutual opportunity to do more there. And we look at all across the world. What is the next fan base? Playing the game of basketball and playing any sport, I'm sure you can allude to, definitely drives fandom. By dribbling a basketball, seeing our players, being part of it, viewing our games, and so we've been broadcasting games in the UAE for a while through our broadcasts. So it was just something that was a perfect synergy between us and the commitment from Abu Dhabi to do games there.
And I guess following up with you, is there you can make choices among a lot of different leagues, a lot of different teams, sports. How do you decide to enter into a partner? Like, what is attractive about the NBA for the UAE?
I think it's just a very popular sport. Football or soccer and basketball, these are sports that the UAE society are very passionate about. And so I think bringing these kind of games over to the UAE is kind of extremely attractive. So yeah.
So I guess kind of moving to New York City, we started in the UAE. So the NYCFC, why is it important for the city football group to have a team in New York City, to have a team in the MLS? And maybe you can kind of explain a little bit briefly what the City Football Group is and its ties to the UAE and stuff like that.
Sure. So City Football Group is our parent company, employs a multi-club approach, and right now owns 13 clubs around the world. Manchester City is probably the most famous one of them. We NYCFC, are 80% owned by Man City and 20% owned by the Yankees. Our ultimate beneficial owner of City Football Group, it's a very complicated, intricate structure, but ultimately Sheikh Mansour of the royal family of Abu Dhabi, in his personal capacity, is owner of City Football Group. And so there is that tie for us to the UAE, but we do not have any specific tie to the country or to the royal family itself. So here in New York, City Football Group, our CEO, Ferran Soriano, had this vision of a multi-club approach. And New York was incredibly important to him and to the rest of our ownership group, simply because of the diversity of this city, the strength of this market. When you talk about the potential for player talent pool, the New York, New Jersey area is considered one of the best in the U.S. in terms of men's and women's soccer potential. And MLS was seen as sort of a league that is on the rise, and one that they felt very strongly that City Football Group needed to have a team in this league. And New York was the market for them. So in 2013, we were announced as the 20th franchise in MLS, and we played our first game in 2015. And so we have been investing in the city of New York and playing for the city of New York for the better part of the last 10 years. And the real driver and the real approach from City Football Club's, or City Football Group's perspective is community. And one of the things that they really did in Manchester was build up the community of Manchester in and around where our Etihad Stadium is and our training facility is. And it's a model and an approach that we have taken in each of our different locations around the world, and New York has been no different. So City and the Community is our sort of global name of each of our foundations and our local communities. And it is our way and our approach of really getting to be the most impactful, creating the most real and genuine relationships we can within our community. And so we made a promise 10 years ago that we would build the first soccer-specific stadium in the 5 boroughs of New York, and it has been an incredibly challenging and long process for us. If anybody is familiar with New York real estate and New York construction, or has followed our saga over the last 10 years. And so it would have been a lot easier if we had been willing to go across the river or across into Westchester or Nassau, but for us it was about investing in this city, in this community. And we're really proud to say that this year we were able to accomplish the approvals for that.
So, I guess shifting gears again, maybe to more, you alluded to this a second ago, and community engagement, and I guess starting with you, Eric, there's lots of programs that you alluded to them earlier too, maybe you could talk a little bit more detail, lots of programs that you put in place in Abu Dhabi, and I'm guessing other places that you go to. And so, what are the goals of those programs? What are the motivations, for the NBA to establishing those programs?
Yeah, I'll start. I'll definitely defer to Emeka because he's traveled the world even more than I have and done and been a superstar on and off the court around the world. Through the NBA and, as I mentioned, NBA Cares, we really focus on addressing important societal issues around the globe. Education, youth and family development, health and wellness, sustainability, diversity, equity, inclusion. And while those are very broad areas of focus, they allow us maximum flexibility to achieve goals of our players, our partners, our teams, and our fans. We want to make sure that we are addressing societal issues that are also local challenges. And it's important, it's in our DNA. Anywhere we do business, whether it's in Abu Dhabi, in China, in New York, in California, we want to make sure that we're giving back just as much as we're putting in from our games. But we can't do any of that work without what our biggest asset is, which is our players, our current and former. And they're the ones that allow us to take stance on different issues, allow us to have meaningful impact, and most importantly, make memorable experiences for so many youth and families around the world. For the amount of times that I've seen a player show up to a school or to an after-school program, and the look on their face where they see an Emeka Okafor, a LeBron James, a Steph Curry, something that they'll never forget. And when they can actually play basketball alongside one of these superstars, it's life-changing for them. Even for myself, who have seen it hundreds of times, that impact that's had. So I think that's what drives us as the NBA League office. But I'd love to have Emeka talk about his experiences.
That was my next question.
Sorry.
So, you know, as a player, the NBA it's an amazing organization, it's an amazing brotherhood, and as a little kid, you strive and you work in hopes of getting there and getting to the promised land, and it's a statistical anomaly to make it, right? But every single player that's in the NBA firmly believes that he was meant to make it, and how dare you ever think that they weren't. And once we get there and are in that network, it's really refreshing to be humbled and to be reined back into community. Going back to schools, engaging with the youth and the people that root for you. It reminds you, it takes you out of that mindset that it took to get you there, and makes you appreciative of really the partnership. You're there because people root and cheer for you. So in these outings and these engagements, it's a way for the players to say, hey man, you guys are rooting for us, we're rooting for you too. We appreciate you guys. As Eric mentioned, I've done South Africa, I've been to China, I've done a camp in Korea, and a lot, like the best moments, the most rewarding moments is when you see that fan that they can't believe they're seeing you in the flesh. It's one thing when you have fan engagements in the U.S., there's something tangible. Okay, if I'm in Charlotte and a Charlottean sees, okay, or even if I'm in L.A., hey, Okafor, you suck, or I love you, whatever. It's still, it's still there, right? It's still in the U.S. But when you're overseas, you can just see it. It's like, wow, a real live NBA player is right in front of me. Who'd have thunk it? And whether you're in Africa, China, Korea, the notes are different, but the flavor is all still the same. And so I did a camp in Korea. I want to say 2008, 2009, right? And ended up playing back in Korea right before the pandemic, 2019, right? 2019 going to 2020. And Mobis Phoebus, Hyundai Mobis Phoebus was my team. And I was on the team, and this kid who was taller than me, so I'm 6'9", he's 6'11", 7 foot, comes up to me and said, hey man, do you remember me? I'm like, yeah, I remember you. Yeah. No, he said, no. He shows me a picture that I took with him as a little boy when I was at the camp back in 2009. And here he was as a grown man, my teammate. And I was just like, wow. You just never really know. And, it's just moments like those that just make the athlete experience just that much more delicious.
Does it also bring you back to your love of the game? Because our athletes, our players say that all the time, that they get so energized when they're around the young kids because, let's face it, it's a job, right? So it becomes like pressure and like, are we winning, are we losing, are we not? But when they're around the kids, it's like you remember it's a game and you love it.
There's a purity in just the joy of children and in the joy of those who don't know what it's really like to be in the machine. Because the NBA's professional sports is amazing, but I'm pretty sure if you went to every professional athlete, they'll say, hey man, there's a caveat to this thing. There's some things that we just didn't know. It's just not purely about the sport. There's just all this other. You got to read the fine print because it comes with a whole bunch of other things that we didn't know about, but here we are. But what makes up for that is like just the gleam. You know, these kids, these fans. Like as an athlete, I love getting up and just chasing. Hey man, I'm trying to be the best I can. I'm trying to get that championship. I'm trying to work on myself. I'm getting better. And just as much as that chase and drive, I enjoyed the fan interaction. You know, there's something with just knowing someone's just rooting for you just cause. Like, you don't know me like that, but you're like just egging me on with your heart and soul, and there's something very endearing about that, and that's something very rewarding. And again, there's something special when it's in you know, your home city or your home country, but it's something it's a little extra when it's beyond. And you know, I really commend the NBA for expanding and reaching out. And you know, the NBA is a global game. You know, I travel a lot, and you know, I'm always constantly surprised to hear the different accents say my name. You know, hey Okafor, and just the bewilderment of them seeing me in Singapore or you know wherever I might be, and just like, you know, are you a ghost? Do you actually exist? And you know, how can you have a bad day after that? You know, it's just that vitamin. And establishing, you know, grassroots positions in all these countries, I think just helps foster and just builds that global brand. And, you know, the NBA's from when I started to now, what, like 40% international players? You know, so in order to chase a dream, it's good to see people like yourself that resemble yourself. So you have all these countries who see, you know, players from different, either from their country or a neighboring region, and it just makes that dream seem that much more achievable, much less when they see the person in the flesh and can touch the person. You know, Joel Embiid, you know, was from Basketball Beyond Borders, you know, so. And as athletes, we recognize this, and we understand it, and we love it, and it's why we do it.
So I want to come back to NYCFC's community engagement efforts, but since you brought this up, I wanted to ask Eric, or even both of you, so there are programs that you have in place that are designed to, you know, provide non-basketball kind of benefits, or you know, help kids in a lot of ways. How much of your efforts are like developing the next generation of potentially professional basketball players that come from the UAE or come from, you know, all the places that Emeka was just talking about? Like, how much of the strategy is that? In both of you too, I guess.
Yeah, I'll start quickly. In the work that I oversee, it's not a huge priority for us to develop the next Emeka Okafor. We are really about using the sport for development and getting kids engaged in different areas of focus, as I mentioned earlier, some of those key pillars. But also, too, ensuring that it's not just a global stance. We want to make sure it's localized. So the challenges are facing in Abu Dhabi or in the Middle East or in China are different than what the kids are facing in the Bronx or facing in Queens. So we want to make sure that we localize it. And what's like for us, similar to MLS and obviously NYCFC, we rely on our teams to help with that and the local partnerships. We have global partners that do a lot of the great work, and we know that we're experts, or we believe we're experts in basketball as one of the best basketball leagues in the world. We're not experts in every single societal issue, but we want to partner with some of those best-in-class organizations that have the expertise, that have the resources and the research in order to do that. So that's some of the reasons why we're able to do that without developing the next NBA player or WNBA player. Now, if that happens, that's fantastic, you know, and has happened, like, you know, Yao Ming from China, and what his coming to the NBA and being such a prominent figure in the NBA, you move mountains for the NBA on a global scale. But going back to 1992 with the Dream Team, and the globalization of, you know, the Olympics and basketball, what it is today, and Emeka, you know, just mentioned Joel Embiid, going through Basketball Without Borders program that we host in, you know, different continents, where we bring together the best boys and girls as the next generation. And that's a separate track. Now, it's tied in with community development as well, but the elite development is kind of a separate track than some of the community work that we do.
So for us, we have a couple of different focuses. As a professional soccer team, of course, one of our goals is to develop top talent. And so we do that through our academy program, which is our elite younger players from the U12 to U17 age groups. Our city and the community programming that you mentioned is separate, and that is our community arm and our foundation, where over the last 10 years, we have brought free soccer programming to over 30,000 young children across the 5 boroughs of New York. We also have built, with some of our partners in the New York City Soccer Initiative, 50 mini pitches across the city. And so we're really focused on providing access to the game to a demographic and a group of kids who may not otherwise have had access to this sport, and providing safe places for them to play. So we also do that in conjunction with our partners at the DA's offices and the NYPD through our Saturday Night Lights program, where we open up gyms on Friday and Saturday nights and provide coaches for them to have a safe place to play. And most of those are in, high violence prone neighborhoods. And we have made a further commitment to build another 26 of those mini pitches before the 26 World Cup. But through our city and the community programming efforts, that's really not, and I think to your point, we're not looking for the next Messi or Ronaldo there. However, you don't know where the next Messi or Ronaldo will come from until you put a ball at their feet, right? So just providing access to children is the real focus for us, and growing a love of the game. It doesn't matter if you're a professional. It doesn't matter if you're even really good at it, but do you love it, right? And so introducing it to these kids is sort of the main focus for us. We have partnered with some great partners over the years to build those mini pitches, including with the UAE embassy. And the first one we did actually was before NYCFC even existed. It was when Manchester City came over on a summer tour here, and in conjunction with the UAE embassy, built a mini pitch on the rooftop of Lexington School in Harlem. That was really the birthplace of City and the community and its efforts here in New York City on behalf of NYCFC. The most recent one I think we did was in 2022, where we refurbished a pitch at Crotona Park in conjunction with Councilmember Richie Torres. And so we've done these numerous times over the years with some really great partners who help us with resources and the ability to provide even more children with these free soccer programming and with the pitches. We also try to teach them life skills. We've got young leaders who are children who come through our programs as they grow older, and then in turn give back to their own communities and become soccer coaches and become part of our coaching program, many of whom have then become interns, and some of whom have become full-time employees with us. And so there's a great narrative sort of helping them to even just see what's the art of the possible in the sports industry.
And maybe Lee can talk a little bit about NYU Abu Dhabi and how it's done somewhat, Pete has done similar things to try to use sports as a way to engage the community and be a tool for good.
Yeah, sure. I was just going to actually say and acknowledge, but not naming names and just pointing out the person in the room who should get that question about NYU Abu Dhabi, because Coach Pete is here, and he's the founding athletic director of NYU Abu Dhabi, and all the great things in partnership that NYU Abu Dhabi has done in the city, in the Emirate, and in the nation. But I think it all actually stems from the same kinds of things that and everyone else has been talking about, which is starting out with values and community and something social, which is kind of, for a lot of people, a rearrangement of thinking. You sort of think, oh, there's something in it. We want to find the next great player. We want to find, it's a way to kind of source that. But if you clear that out at the beginning and you do things in really like in a socially responsible way with social impact, where you're looking at the organization or the institution to do the right things because it's for the good of the community, it's for the good of society. It's also recognizing the impact that you can have if you do it or if you don't do it, and just sort of taking up that responsibility. You see things grow in a different way. You see children and people of all ages engaging with the sport and engaging with the organizations in different ways than if you start out with something that's more either financial or sort of, this run to go find the next great player and the hope that it's there. Everybody just behaves differently. And so you do get, we were saying the art of the possible. And it's new, it's different. And you just see things grow. And that's the same thing, I think, that grew out of NYU Abu Dhabi, and why, for example, the NBA goes back year after year. I would add to it the last thing, like Emeka, you were talking about from the athlete perspective. I know for some of our students there at NYU Abu Dhabi, they tell these stories like, when the NBA came, I held the door for Allen Iverson, and he walked in like, oh, that's great. What's the rest of it? No, that's it. That's the story. But there's something in there, and these are students from around the globe that just fits kind of with the place. And there's something to that because, those students who were 18, 19, 20, 21 years old had a moment that evidently changed their lives, and it was to hold a door for another human being. But that's kind of in there, and it just works on those levels. So I think it's all in.
We've been there together when NBA Cares is out on campus, and the number of kids that are there is unbelievable. But I was also, wow, that's Tracy McGrady. So even the adults are awestruck. I guess a question for you. The NBA and the NYCFC aren't necessarily looking for the next Messi or the next, next great player, but maybe the UAE is, and I know there are goals to try to have have more players compete in the Olympics, to do better in football, like in terms of the world, not to do well in the World Cup. So how much of this is part of the calculus on the part of the UAE in terms of trying to develop the next great players or develop interest in the sport? Or
Look, I think, we always want to make sure that we find tools or ways for our players to excel. Us at the embassy, for example, we've brought the UAE national women's soccer team over to the US. That was actually one of the first programs I worked on at the embassy back in 2011 to run clinics here in the United States with professional teams. We also brought the UAE women's ice hockey team over to the US, and that was not only a tool for them to be able to enhance their skills by playing, by training with some players from the NHL, but it was also a chance for Americans to see, oh wow, women from from halfway across the world are coming here. They play ice hockey in the middle of the desert, but it was a dream for the players to be standing on the rink with Ovechkin and dropping the puck in front of 18,000 fans, and to be able to kind of share that same passion and that same love for the sport. They became national celebrities that week that they were in, not only in Washington, D.C., but across, but just being able to kind of be face-to-face with these players, run clinics with them, get some pointers from them, and then take that passion, go home, and then they run clinics as well for kind of the younger generation of players, so that even if they don't have the opportunity to be professional, that they're already kind of instilling that love of the game for the younger generation that they didn't, that will probably have more opportunities than they did. So I think they're laying the groundwork for future generations to be even better than they have been in the past.
we talked before, you spend most of your time here in DC, and so how much of the things that you described, having teams and players go to the UAE and vice versa, how much of that has, since diplomacy is in the title of the kind of panel, how much of that influences or enhances relations between, say, the U.S. and the UAE?
Oh, significantly. I think it helps, definitely break down misconceptions. Our players act as ambassadors when they come here. With our ice hockey team, for example, it was around the time that the Special Olympics was going to be held in the UAE. Ice hockey is not a game that's played at the Special Olympics, so we partnered with the American Special Hockey Association here in the U.S. to run clinics for kids with, we call them people of determination in the UAE, but it's people with special needs, to be able to share the love of of ice hockey with them. And it's just an opportunity to really be able to, kind of share that passion. I think, we've mentioned it time and time again that sports really is a unifier. You don't have to speak the same language as long as you're both passionate about the game and you have that love for the game. You're able to kind of, the sky's the limit, really. So I think, with all these different kind of programs that we've brought, we actually, one of the teams that the hockey players played with in the US, we actually had the opportunity to take them over to the UAE with their families. They played a game in the middle of Dubai Mall in the ice rink over there, and people that were just walking around the mall actually stopped just to watch the game. But it's opportunities like this that they spent a couple of hours with those players, but then those players actually traveled halfway across with their families, got to meet with the players, got to play games, got to run clinics for kids in the UAE as well. So they're extremely successful, yes.
Maybe, yeah, I was going to say.
I just want to add one point on that. One of the things in learning, I believe 90% of Abu Dhabi is expats, and
200 nationalities live in the UAE. Only 10% of the UAE are native Emiratis. The rest are over 200 nationalities that call the UAE home. So we're very proud of that diversity. That
so
exists.
it's such a diverse, area. And when we were over there doing some of our community work, I remember there's a big Filipino population, and we actually did a youth basketball clinic with Filipino kids and Emirati kids, and it was a great experience. And just mixing of cultures using the game of basketball that are on an even playing field on a basketball court at NYU with NBA players there. So it was just a unique experience bringing together different cultures, to learn about one another using the game of basketball or any sport.
I guess following up with you again, is there, so this is obviously something that the government would like to, achieve, having sports bringing people together and inclusion. You already mentioned some of this stuff. Is it something that the government actively keeps track of or tries to measure in terms of the positive effects or outcomes that are related to sports domestically? The NBA has had this impact, or the Special Olympics had that impact in terms of what people in the UAE think and how they interact?
I think after the Special Olympics, I think just seeing how the community came together and rallied around people of determination. I mean, the term people of determination came about around the time of the Special Olympics because we didn't want to, and that was a concerted effort from the government to not have them being called people with special needs. It was changed to officially be called people of determination. I think all these different kind of world-class events that we host over there, it definitely does have an impact on the community, and it changes the way the community interacts with one another, the understanding that people have for one another, the acceptance that people have for one another, no matter the differences.
And I know the one of the motivations for hosting the Special Olympics was to do what you just described, and also put new programs in place. And as a result of the Special Olympics, there were programs. Maybe you could talk a little bit more in terms of what.
So, I think there were definitely a lot more programs for people of determination in schools. Like I said, the way that the community accepted them. There's so many different opportunities now for people of determination, not just in sports, but for arts. I mean, we have some amazing artists that are on the spectrum that we actually had the opportunity to bring over to the US last year to take part in Autism Awareness Month in LA with Autism Speaks, to be able to kind of showcase their talents. And I think the sky's the limits for them, and they actually see that they have a voice now, and they're proud of their differences. That they are actually, when we changed that terminology for them, I think that changed the mindset for them as well. That they could be proud of who they were.
And I guess circling back to the thought I had before about international diplomacy, I know that's not your area of expertise, but when you go to these places with the NBA, do you, obviously it's in part to enhance the brand and grow the game, but do you feel like it has a positive effect for, say, the United States, since you're based here, you're here in New York? Are there positive impacts?
Yeah, of course. I think anytime we're anywhere playing the game of basketball with the NBA brand and our players, it has a positive impact on the United States and the willingness of our professional athletes, and their willingness to give back, no matter where they are in the world. Obviously, there's different communities that have different needs, but the impact of us being there and having an impact on those local communities, really has a huge impact on our brand, but also on our players and their experiences there, even from the United States standpoint.
Do you have anything to add in terms of your experience, like as a player?
So in terms of international NBA outreach, there's two buckets. There's the summertime, like Basketball Beyond Borders and various overseas camps. Then there are the preseason games. The preseason games, and the off season, let's call it off season. The off season camps and international community reach outs tend to be more individualized, and you may either be by yourself or you may be partnered with another NBA player from another team. Usually you have like your family, and but during the preseason, you're with your team, and everybody has to go, right? So not everybody's a world traveler. Not everybody has been outside the country. Not everybody's necessarily comfortable or knows much outside their own country. You have varying experience levels, and number one, it serves as an excellent bonding experience, and for two reasons. For one, you're just around each other a lot, and then the second, it's like the people who have been overseas kind of help people who haven't, and just broaden their horizons. And yes, the NBA is wherever they're going, they're extending their reach, and they're introducing a country to the brand and players, but also the other is happening. Some players are getting a completely different experience. Their eyes are widening, and they're eating foods they never would have thought they would eat, and they're seeing things they never would have thought they would see. And the NBA does things very, very nicely, so they're doing it in very, very comfortably, and it just makes for just an overall very cool experience for everybody, and super, super enriching.
Yeah, I was going to say that, when we brought our players over here, for example, we might speak a different language, but when they meet each other and they kind of, what do you guys get up to in the weekend? You realize that there are more similarities that exist between the two cultures than there are differences. They're like, oh my God, they're just like us. They like watching the same things that we do. They like eating the same things that we do. So I think, that's one of the beautiful things about doing these kind of programs in terms of the diplomacy. It's to be able to kind of bridge those cultures, to show that we are more similar to each other, even though we're halfway across the world from each other.
So I guess some final thoughts in terms of the economic impact on investment in sports and hosting these events, and I guess to you, Lee, is there evidence that these like hosting an F1 race in Dubai or Abu Dhabi increases tourism, do these investments have positive return for the countries that make them?
I think there's no doubt. That's all I've got.
Say more.
Yeah, there's no doubt that they do, because people turn out for sports. They turn out to participate, they turn out to engage, they turn out as players, they turn out as fans. My goodness. I'm just thinking even here in the U.S. in the last week, 275,000 people turned out in downtown Detroit for the NFL draft. That's potential players being selected to be hired on to American football teams, and that was just the first day. And then you start to think about that. I'll bring it to the UAE. Even the one-off events have become annual. So the NBA, and you have 5 years, right, that the NBA goes there. Formula One has its season finale at Yas Circuit. I think it's going to end up being for eternity, because they'd be out of their minds to take it anywhere else, given what the response is. And it's from people all over the world. And you can see things in even like City Football Group and the 13 clubs, not unlike those who know the NYU Global Network. You can go to any of these places and the facilities are similar. People can walk in and see some similarity. The venues, the athletic fields, these sorts of things just speak to this power of sport and what it can do for people. I think everybody's spoken to that, but there is, without a doubt, there's no way that sport doesn't have a positive economic impact on cities, and without question, a social impact on cities. And most of what we're seeing, and actually what, like, down the line here, really everybody does exceptionally well, is that they flip the script. It's not about the economics. It's really about starting out with the social.
Yep.
And that feeds the economics. That's not the sport of 50 years ago. It was the other way around. And if you get that, then you get all the things about why any of these organizations would go to places like the UAE and do what they're doing.
Yeah, sport is the great equalizer, right? It has the power to inspire and to motivate and to uplift, but to sort of bring communities together. And I'll just use, this stadium project for us isn't just about building a stadium. For us, it's about building this community. And where we are building is an area of New York City that has been desolate for years and has been victim of environmental degradation and has, been called the Valley of Ashes. And this will be a new neighborhood. It will be 2,500 units of affordable housing and retail and a new school and a hotel and this soccer stadium, which, collectively together is going to generate $6 billion for the city of New York over the next 30 years. And it's going to create 14,000 new jobs. It's going to create, a new ecosystem in the city. And the stadium is not the only part of it, but it is a huge part of it. I mean, we are privately financing the stadium. We're not taking taxpayer dollars. Everything that we're doing is being done through the lens of the community and how we can make this a driver for that community. And so that includes from an economic perspective, but it also includes how do we invite them to be part of this building? This isn't just to play soccer games. This is meant to be more. And that's the power of sport. And that's the power of what it can do for a generation and how it can inspire and how it can help motivate and how it can help build. And I think, all the examples that you've used are great ones too. It's you're building new fans, but you're also creating an awareness and a love of these sports and these games that some of these populations wouldn't otherwise have.
I just want to add also on that stadium, because it's led with this community piece, it's really the first stadium to do that, and you mean it. I mean, it's genuine, and you can listen. I've listened in even on some of the local community board meetings. It's a little wonky, I know, but that's it. And you can hear it because there's this small group of people who say, "Oh, we've heard this before. We've heard before you're going to do all these things," but there are more numbers, and kind of the louder group is, no, there's something different happening here. It's really a game changer. And to lead that way, it's really, you have to rearrange your thinking. But it matters.
I guess end with you, Dana. I know the answer to this question already, but does the UAE feel like they've gotten, a positive return in terms of economics, but also kind of building social capital?
For sure.
Have you seen, I know you have, but
I don't know if you've been to any of these like while they're happening, but the whole city, the energy around the city just changes completely during any of these events. So yes.
I've been there for some, but I can't get in. I can't get a ticket to the F1 race, so unfortunately I have to stand outside and watch. But
It's very loud.